Hello, guys. My name is Desmond, and I welcome you to my lesson for today, where we'll be looking at your mathematics. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me to say it is very much important that I say it is very, very much important because what I'm about to say is massively, massively, massively. Hey, massively important, ladies and gentlemen, that I say a day without learning something new, it's a day wasted. By so saying, Larissa, please, 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 Kolahano Lee, please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I conduct, you learn something new. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So I'm pretty much sure that everyone did see the question paper that was sent in the group, which is what we'll be looking at in today's lesson. So I've already drawn that given sketch from the question. So remember, guys, if you've got two devices, just make sure that you forward this question paper to your other device. Then you'll be having two devices, one where you read where I'll be reading, and the other one you'll be seeing where I'll be writing. So very quickly, Bantu Bagiti, very quickly, let me try to redraw that so that you have an idea of what goes behind the scene. So a given sketch has got ways in which it was sketched, which is what I'm going to quickly explain. But most importantly, question number 6 is what we'll be looking at in today's lesson. We are given a statement followed by the sketch, and lastly, questions with mark allocated to each question. So the statement reads as follows. The sketch below represents the graphs of two parabolas, F and G. Most importantly, two parabolas. Namely, we have one called Bramafranco and the other one called Bra George. So that means we'll be looking at f of x and g of x, which means, Bantu Bagiti, based on our summary, this is where we'll be looking at. Remember, we said a parabola can be called a parabola or a quadratic function. So in addition to what I'm having there, I'll just add to say another word is parabola. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So that means it is that time, Mbali, where we need to switch the power. So I think it's going to be load shedding stage number, let's see, we switch off number 1, we switch off number 2, we switch off number 3. So now it's going to be stage 3, meaning we only concentrate on that. Everywhere else, load shedding. So under quadratic, we know we've got the general formula being y is equals to ax squared plus q, whereby if our a value is greater than 0, meaning if it's positive, we have a smiling shape. If our a value is less than 0, which means it's a negative a value, we have a sad shape. What else do we have under a parabola or quadratic? If you remember, we did discuss that the q value tells us more about the vertical shift. Most importantly, Zozozo, I said the vertical shift means up and down shift. Vertical shift does not mean vertically upwards, or it does not mean upwards. It means up and down. This A value, which determines whether a parabola is smiling or if it's sad, it is that A value over there. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so something that you need to remember under quadratic or parabola, we spoke about an axis of symmetry, where I said if you have a slice of bread that you need to cut it into two equal halves, you need to cut it right in the middle, or you can cut it in any way possible, but whichever way you cut it, you need to make sure that the two sides are symmetrical and they are equal. So now, in addition to that first statement that I've read, we are given a formula there which says f of x is equals to 1 over 2x squared minus 8. This is what we are given. So let's see. The statement continues and it says the turning point of G is C. Maybe let me quickly bring back this board. The turning point of G. Where is G? There is G. The turning point of G is C. Where is C? C is that point there, Bantubakite, at the turning point of a function. And the y-intercept of G is A. This is the y-intercept. Remember, the word intercept, it simply means where it touches. But now, where it touches what? That's why they have to say the y-intercept, which means where it touches y. It's at that point, which is point A. What is it that is touching y at point A? It is this line of G. What type of a line is that? This is what we call a parabola. If you're wearing a blazer when you go to school, you might be calling that a parabola. But me, I call it a parabola. So now the statement continues. It says B and D. Where is, oh, there's B. B, but now where is, oh, there is D. B and D are the x-intercepts. They like using this word intercepts. So every time when you hear intercepts, just remember that in simple terms, it refers to where it touches. So they have to say x-intercept. So it's more like they're saying where it touches the x-intercept. So let's see. They are saying B and D are the x-intercepts of F and G respectively. So that means this is the x-intercept for that graph of Brahma-Franco. And then D, it is the x-intercept of that graph of Bra-George. So that's all that we were given, and then followed by that, it is the questions that we'll be looking at. But I did promise that I'm going to quickly try to redraw those functions. But before I do that, can someone confirm if it's all clear on your side? Can you guys clearly hear me when I speak, and can you guys clearly see over there?
It's very clear. Very, very clear.
Okay, that's good to hear. So now I'm going to take away that. And what I'm going to do quickly is to redraw that, those two functions. So, literally, this is what they do when they draw the functions. They don't just start with the smiling and the sad face. Remember, I did say that in Eastern Cape, Mzozozo will take a plate, and inside that plate, she's going to put a putu, then followed by a drumstick. Similarly, when we draw the functions on a Cartesian plane. So that means what came first was the Cartesian plane. This one, it's not a complicated question of between the egg and the chicken, which one came first. In this case, we know it has to be the Cartesian plane first, which has the x and the y axis. Remember, a Cartesian plane at all the times, it has the origin. So after that, that's when Mafranco and George can discuss to say, are we starting with my function or are you starting first? So ladies and gentlemen, it's in most cases where we can say ladies first. So between Mafranco and George, hey, it seems like there's no lady there. I'm not sure how are they going to decide on that. But maybe, let's say, this is the one that was drawn. That one, let's see, it makes a U-turn there. So this is what was drawn. Whose graph is that? This is the graph from Franco. And then afterwards, this is the one that they drew. I'm telling you guys, this is a skill that will help you to be able to analyze the given functions. You need to be able to identify your axis. And then from there, you need to know the start and the end of a function. This is the graph of George. So now, after sketching the functions, there are what we call the points. Bantu bagiti, the points. What is a point, or what represents a point, or what is represented by a point? The moment you see a letter, which could be any letter from A all the way up to Z, just know those are the points. Each point has got the coordinates. The coordinates are represented by X and Y. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. It's in most cases where they start from letter A and then they continue in that direction. That is why this is our letter A. So that means that letter A, it's a point. And then these are what we call the coordinates. So that means point A mathematically, or if you like, mathematically, point A has the coordinates of 0 and 5. That's how you mathematically call out that. So obviously after A, it's B. So now let's focus on B. Where is B? There is point B. But B, is it given the coordinates? No. But what we know about B, we know very well that because it is at that point which is on the axis, being the x-axis, we know that along that line, every point along that line is 0. Every point along that line is what is it? It's not 0 because from there going up, let's see, you are having y values. But when you look at the x values along that, that's when you say it's 0. But the y values along that, it is 0. So that is why in the meantime, we can just say we know that this point, y is 0. This is the one that we don't know what it is. So now, after B, it's C. That's how you interpret a given function. So C, it's a point. So C has got the coordinates 2 and 9. And then from there, we are having D. What do we know about D? The same thing. We know that at point D, Y is 0. We just don't know what the X value at D is. So I think I've actually interpreted everything that you needed to be aware of regarding that drawn sketch, even though mine is not drawn to scale. So I'm just not sure if we are ready to start answering the questions. Before, I think before I start answering those questions, I would like to check if you guys have got some questions based on what I've explained. You might find that I missed something, but through your questions, that's when I'll be able to elaborate. some more. Anyone who's got a question, Bantu Bagit?
So I think your B, the coordinate there, you wrote B as the 0 is on the Y, but actually the 0 is actually on the x-axis.
I possibly made a mistake, but from what I'm looking, it seems like all is in order. I'm not sure. Maybe
Your
is there
B,
someone
sir.
who also noticed my mistake?
Point B.
Point B, yes. What about point B?
Isn't the 0 supposed to be on the x side?
Oh, no. Now I get your point, honorable member. So, okay, this is how you check it. This is where, at this point, this is where x is 0. But can you see, when you start doing that, you have a certain x value. And also, when you do that, you end up having a certain x value there. So that means here it could be -1, -2, it could be -3.
Oh,
Also
so I
here it
made a
could be
mistake.
+1, 2, 3. Yes. So it was a good point that you made, honorable member, because when you feel like there's a mistake made and you raise your point, that's how you will never forget why 0 is on this side. Is based on that simple explanation, honorable member. So just keep on doing what you are doing. In case if you feel like something is wrong or is confusing, just raise that, because I also do some mistakes. But luckily, we've got the Hawks. I'm not sure if you guys were aware. In all of my lessons, we've got the Hawks. They are watching everything that I'm doing like a hawk. So, guys, are we moving on to the questions, or is there someone who's got a question before we move on to the questions? Ako,
No, sir.
Oisasi Toto, are you sure you don't have a question, honorable member? Mr. Zain?
Yes, no, I don't have a question.
Okay. What I know is that not having a question doesn't mean you understand. You just don't have a question because it is not there. So even if you get confused as we continue, I would understand. There are those teachers, if you don't have a question, it means you understand. Then the lesson is done. Okay, so let's see. The first question, 6.1, it says, show that g of x, it's equals to, yes, show that. When I see this type of questions, I remember Moleboge. I'm going to tell you what Moleboge was going to do and expect full marks. Show that, this is that, and that. Literally, you see the question says show that and is given 4 marks. Moleboge was going to write all of that because they said show that. Am I lying, Moleboge?
No.
Bantu bakithi, you must show. So, in other words, it's more like they're saying, by means of calculations, ausbonize ukuthi lo bra George ulingana lo log. So, siyenza kanjani le nto le? This is what you do, Bantu bakithi. Remember all the tactics that I've given you guys. This is what I used to do without me having to stress that much. I just need to remember that, okay, this is G, first thing first. And most importantly, is it a smiling or a sad shape? It's a sad shape. Has it shifted up or down? You can see it has shifted upwards because of it's making a U-turn above that, and also the y-intercept, it is on the positive side. So it's either examiner would say determine the equation of G, or they would make it easy in this manner where they say show that it is that. So now, what is the general formula of a parabola? That is the first question that you need to ask yourself. What is the general formula of a parabola? Based on what we learned, remember we are on, what is it, stage 3. So there's nothing else that we can think of other than this. I think here it was P squared. What else did we have? I think we had a plus Q there. I'm just not sure if you guys remember. But most importantly, when you determine an equation or when you show, let me maybe emphasize this point to say, it's either you show or you determine. So when you show, it's easy because they've already given you a final answer. It's more like they're saying prove that, that. But when you determine, that's when it gets difficult. And you need to remember all that you learned under that certain type of a function. I'm just not sure if you guys remember that we said P and Q, they actually represent what is it? The turning points. I'm not sure if you guys remember me saying TP is actually a P and a Q. Most importantly, whether you're dealing with a straight line, a hyperbola, a parabola, or an exponential, you need two things, which could be 2 points, or under straight line, it could be the gradient and a point. It doesn't matter what you have, but most importantly, you need two things. Okay, so now let's see. Do we have two things on G?
Yes.
Yes, Bantu Bakit. Our suspect G, we've got two things. We have number one, their physical address. Number two, we also have their work address. So because we have two things, it's going to be easy to solve this case, Bantu Bakiti. Let's see. These are the TPs. I'm not sure if you guys agree with me that these are the turning points. These are the turning points. That means something is P, something is Q there. We also have a point that we can use, which is X and Y. Yebo.
Can you re-explain that formula you use, the A open bracket X plus P squared, close bracket square root 2 plus Q? That formula, where did you get it from?
Let's say this formula, it is as it is. Let me see. Okay, I see what honorable member is referring to there. So let me maybe explain something, because here we are having y is equals to ax squared plus q. Maybe that is a possible reason why honorable member is asking where that formula is coming from. Quickly, let me explain something to you, Bantu Bakiti. Let me make use of this same method that I used, when was it, last year? We said you start at a baby stage, then you move on to a teenage stage and then adult stage. So now we are only talking about a parabola. So remember, a parabola started as just y is equals to x squared. This is a parabola at a baby stage where it actually started. And then as it grows, that's when it has that a value there. I'm sure you guys still remember that a value. So the a value meaning on a Cartesian plane, it makes a U-turn there at the origin. So now as it grows, it becomes a bit more complicated. What are we having there? So this is what happens if you remember, we are having y, which is equals to ax squared. And then from there, what happens? We said that's when it can shift vertically upwards or vertically downwards. So this is where you have this type of functions where it moves or it shifts vertically upwards or it shifts vertically downwards. But notice something, Bantala Kankulunkulu. Notice that these functions, those two functions, they shift along that y-axis. They are not shifting sideways. They are shifting vertically upwards or vertically downwards. No longer making a U-turn at the origin, but making a U-turn somewhere up there because it is shifted up there. This one, it is shifted down to there. So it makes a U-turn a bit up there or down there. So now it gets even more complicated, Bantubakiti. This is what now happens at an adult stage. So it's more like this is what you learn in grade 10, 11, and 12. But you don't need to wait until you're in grade 11 or 12 to learn all of those. For me, I learned in grade 11, so I had a better understanding of maths. That is why it was a bit easy in grade 12. So don't limit yourself to a grade in which you are. So let's see. Now, this is what we are having. At an adult stage, this can be represented as y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. Otherwise, it can be represented as a into x plus p squared plus q. A very good question would be, what is the difference between these two? The only, not that and this, between this stage and that stage. The difference is, at this stage, your function shifts up and down and it shifts sideways. So you can see that what has been introduced is actually that bx. Otherwise, if you remove that bx, you just have ax squared plus c, of which you can still refer to that c as q, as the constant. This c or that q, which is that q, its influence is the vertical shift. So whether it's letter C, it's letter D, it's letter V for V, so it doesn't matter. It represents the vertical shift. So now, the reason why we ended up having that formula or those two formulas is because that's where now you have this type of a function. You are having your Cartesian plane there. That's where you have a function which is now shifted sideways. Can you see? It shifted upward and then also sideways. How do you see that it has shifted sideways? It's because it's making a U-turn inside a quadrant. It is making a U-turn inside a quadrant. And also, that's a confirmation that instead of it making a U-turn at the origin, it has now shifted either to the left or to the right, and again it has shifted up and down. That's what makes it to be a bit more complicated. So now, why are we having those two formulas there? It is because depending on the nature of the question, sometimes they can give you those two x-intercepts. If they give you the two x-intercepts, that means you use this formula to either show or prove or determine. But if you are given the turning point and just 1 point anyway, it could be there, it could be there, it could be there, or there might be a straight line where they want you to determine that point, then you know you have the turning point and that point. That's when you use this formula. So the reason why I knew that I had to use or apply this formula in this case, it's simply because I know I've got the turning points and 1 point. You did well, honorable member, by asking that question, Voiswa. I think let me make use of this opportunity to emphasize the reason why I like this type of classes. Remember, today is a Thursday. On Tuesday and Thursday, everyone, regardless of the grade in which you are welcome to join the lesson, because that's where we are having a family meeting. But on Monday, we only focus on grade 10s, Wednesday 11, tomorrow grade 12s. But most importantly, if I'm doing a grade 10 lesson, all the grade 11s and 12s must attend. Grade 11 lesson, all grade 10s and 12s must attend. Only if I'm doing grade 12, the grade 10s might not need to attend. But Tuesday and Thursday, family meeting. So, Bantu Bakit, what I've just explained, does it make sense to everyone? Or am I the only one who's understanding myself?
Yes, it does make sense.
Last one to confirm.
It makes sense. I do understand.
A day without learning something new, it's a day wasted. By so saying, Bantu Bagit, please do make sure that by the end of each and every lesson that I conduct, you learn something new. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so let's see. We are having our point C, which is the turning point. And this is where someone who does not attend my lessons will get it wrong. What is the value of P and what is the value of Q? Anyone would like to give it a try?
The value of P is 2. Yes, and the value of Q is 9. But because it must change, isn't it? So it's going to, yes, it's going to be -2.
Yes. Moleboge, if it wasn't in the night, I was going to say Matsoho, and everyone else, wherever they were, or wherever they are, they were going to clap some hands. I thought you were going to get it wrong, which is where most of the learners get it wrong, Bantu Bagiti, because of not remembering that something has to change a sign. And for that reason, you might not be able to show that. Whatever is that, and that's where you end up feeling like just writing it as it is and thinking that that's what they want you to do in order to show that it is that. I'm not sure, is it everyone agreeing with what Moleboge is saying there, honorable members. She's saying this is -2, and that is 9. I'm not sure if you guys agree with that. I'm not saying she's correct. I'm just saying with her remembering that something has to change. It's a very positive step.
It is correct.
Yes. Yes, yes,
So I
yes,
think
yes,
she's correct
yes. Which
because
means
it has a
when you
negative.
I couldn't get that reason, but it's fine as long as you're saying it's correct. Remember, guys, now we substitute. We just know that our A at this point, we don't know what our A is. We know we have X, but what is our P value? So our P value has to change. We need to substitute it as -2. And then you
Because
square, and then
it's
Q.
upside down.
Maybe someone is giving us a reason that that might help us to never. What are you saying there, honorable member? Can you stand on the
Because the
podium
growth
and
is upside. His face is a frowning face, so it is a negative. That's why we need to change the 2 into a -2.
honorable member is saying it is because of that? Then, as a student, I would say, what happens if it's like that? Will it change or no?
So I think the Q will change.
Hey, then we need to clarify that one. Honorable member, a very positive and a progressive comment there. Remember, guys, let me firstly say it is not because it's a sad shape, and also if it's like that, it doesn't mean Q will change. I'll give you a few scenarios there. So this is what happens. What makes a function to be a sad function? It is because of that A value. If it's negative, then that's when you are having a sad shape. But if the A value is positive, then that's when you're going to have a smiling shape. Those are the only reasons why a function could be of that shape or of that shape. Those are the only reasons. And then now, this one, it is the reason why the graph shifted to the right. So that means if you have a function, whether it is like that or whether it is like that, can you see it's making a U-turn on this side, on the right side, which means it has shifted to the right. It has shifted by 2 to the right. But if, for example, it was making a U-turn on this side, so that means, for example, let's say we have our point, not P, but maybe B. Here, let's say we're having -2, and then here we are having what? Let's say -4. So that means when we substitute that turning point into that formula, we're going to substitute it as a positive value. So that means this tells you more about the sideways shift, if something has shifted to the left or to the right. Then this Q value, but in short, or a conclusive statement is, let me maybe bring this. A conclusive statement is to say, if it has shifted to the right, when you substitute into the formula, you substitute as a negative sign. If it has shifted to the left, That means your turning point was going to be a negative x value, but you substitute it as a positive x value. So now I'm about to explain that Q. Maybe let me use this space. So the Q, you can still have a Q which is positive. If you have, for example, something similar to that, it is a smiling shape and it still has a positive Q value. Let's see this one. It's a sad shape. It touches the y-axis there, but it is still below that. It still has a negative Q value. So that means you're going to substitute it there as it is. So that means this Q value, it only tells us more about the turning point. I'm not sure, honorable member, if you understand what I've just explained there, but I'm pretty much sure that it now makes some sense. So just make sure, honorable member, that you remember it makes sense. Nay, everything makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So also, I was very quick in explaining that. Just remember that there's a lesson that I've done which explains all of that at a moderate pace. So just make sure that you catch up so that you understand it even better. Remember, we just substituted that from the home address. Now, what do we do with the work address? The main aim of determining an equation of a function, what we're trying to do is just to remain with letter x and a y. So that means we need to find the a value. We already know the q value and the p value. So how do we get the a value? That's where the work address comes in, because we are going to say we know that that is that and that is that, whereby the work address is 0 and 5, meaning where you see x you substitute that, where you see y you substitute that. Why would you do that? It's because you want to calculate the a value. So now let's substitute. So that means you're having that into that minus that squared plus 9. So under this lesson, Larissa, this is what I was saying, to say this is not a lesson where we teach you how to solve maths problems. We already assume that at this stage where you are doing the functions, you've done the solve for x, quadratic equations, linear, inequalities, and whatever. That is why, Mbali, when a learner comes to me and say, not only a learner, even if a parent comes to me and say, my child has got a problem with functions, that's not where I'm going to start. I don't start with the functions, but I start at the starting point. The starting point is not the functions. So that is why even when you go to a doctor and you say you are sick, maybe you say your leg is painful, instead of them checking the leg, they are busy putting some stuff on your heart, busy checking some other stuff, but you're saying the pain is on the leg. It is because there's always a starting point, Bantu Bagiti. So to all the parents who are supportive and attending some of my lessons, please be aware that there's always a starting point. If a learner says I've got a problem with functions, it doesn't mean that's the only thing that they need, because they will get hammered by the functions themselves and also the calculation part. So now we are on the calculation part. What I was doing all along, it was to explain all that you need to understand. Okay, let's see. Now we solve. You take this to the other side, it's more like you're having 5 minus 9, which is equals to a into, what is 0 minus 2? That is negative 2. When you square it, it's going to, okay, let's see. What is 5 minus 9? Is it not negative 4? I think. So what is that squared? Pantipakiti. I think it's 4. I think it's 4. Negative 2 squared, I think it's positive 4a. Then what do? Obviously, you need to remove that 4. That's why you divide both sides by 4 so that it cancels, and then you are having your a value, which is equals to negative 1 because of negative 4 divided by by 4, it's equals to negative 1. So already we have shown that our a is equals to negative 1. It doesn't end there. Let me quickly check if I've got. Maybe I'll just remove this part. Maybe I'll just remove that part and also that one. Maybe that one as well. So now remember, we just know that we are having y, which is what is our a value is negative 1. We just so it's negative invisible 1. We don't need to write that one. So it's x minus 2 squared plus 9. So can you see we've got the a value, we've got the p value, we've got the q value. We just need to rearrange this thing in that format to that format. That is why, honorable member, I said at a complicated stage, you have two things. Let me say you have a parabola as y is equals to ax squared plus bx plus c, or as y is equals to a into x plus p squared plus q. So it's more like they're saying move from this format to that format. That means sometimes they can say move from this format to that format. That is why in grade 11 you learn completing the squares. It might be useful in you moving from this format to that format. So that is why it is very much important to learn everything. Everything. You don't say, as long as I get 70%, it's a pass. No, it doesn't work like that. You need to learn everything. You can't say, I'm going to build you a house. I'll build it, but I'll just leave the roof. As if building a house and leaving the roof, it's like you passing with a 95. You are not yet done. So that means when you go to school, they are hoping that you get 100%, even though it's a bit difficult, but you can get 100%. So don't build a house and leave the roof and say, if it's above 50%, it's a pass. So now, this is what you would get as an equation, and you need to work it out. Remember, I said you start where the brackets are. This is what someone is going to do, Pusisi. They're going to say that negative times that, and they say that times that, and then from there, they do two of this. You will get hammered big time. So you start with a negative, and then you do two of the same thing. What same thing? X minus 2, x minus 2. Then you work it out. You still have that negative. This by that, we have what is it? X squared minus 2x. That by that, we have negative that, that plus that. Remember, guys, at this stage, we are not teaching you how to, so we assume you already know all of this. That is why it's very, very much important to get. Okay, so now let's see. Still have negative that. All of this, they give you negative 4x plus 4 plus that 9. Easy stuff. That's when you can say this by that by that. So let's see. It sounds like I'm speaking China now. Da ba da, then it's going to be 4x. Da ba da, it's going to be negative that. No, here it's not da ba da, but it's just that. What is that? That is that. Then what are we having? Let's see. Look for common. This one, you just write it as it is. Then you have 4x. What is da ba da? Da ba da, it's more like you're having 9 minus that, which is that. Can you see? That's how you show that it is that. That is how you show that it is that. I'm not sure. Anyone who's got a question before we quickly move on to the next question?
Question Mokyo. Most
Mogai.
What's the stellar residence mathomo? Not to say Sawai.
See?
Say 5. So 5 is equals to a into x minus 2 to the cube root plus 9.
Sesifise.
Unfortunately, it's Pumuti.
Oh, okay. Mpochori serinke swa.
There at get like
Yeah.
email. Yeah, a into 0,5.
At a into
0,5.
0 and 5. Okay, no, I see. That a being a point having the coordinates of 0 and 5. Yes. Matapel, remember to unmute your mic. Maybe let's see, because what happened was, let me quickly do this. So what happened was we had y is equals to what was it? Our a, which was unknown, we had x minus 2 squared, and then we had plus 9, I think, yes. So what we do, where we see x, we substitute 0. Where we see y, we substitute 5. So that means 5, I substituted it there, and then a is what we are looking for. Into what is x? X, you see, we put a 0 there. Then it's 0 minus what? Minus that 2, you close squared, and then plus 9. So what you do is to solve. You're having 5, which is equals to, if you punch this thing, let's say on your calculator, punch into 0 minus 2, you close, you squared. That's when it's going to give you 4. Then you still have that plus 9. But this 9, you take it to the other side, it makes it 5 minus 9, which is equals to 4a. So 5 minus 9, it's equals to negative 4, which is equals to 4a. Then you want to remove that. That is why you divide by exactly 4 so that it cancels and you remain with a. That, it gives you negative 1. Yeah, is it kwagaling that side? Bantu bakiti, are you guys sure that I'm losing you? Lamlile Duma. Let me see who has joined today's lesson. Posisiwe is there, Mbali, Leich, Bok Kamoso. Let's see, Voiswa is there, Mzozozo is there, Alicia is there, Leah, Davina. Are you sure you are not lost, honorable member? We have Manuela Law, Roderick Zengeni. Roderick, are we okay that side? We've got Hamisa, there is Masabata, we've got Lindiwe. The Umis, you are quiet today. Kujo Tobejani, Ntwanambi, the Chumis. Guys, I'm not sure if I'm losing you. You are very quiet, Bantu Bakiti, and we're about to wrap up our lesson for today. That was the most difficult question. The rest are doable.
I'm fine, sir. Thank you. I understand.
Okay. So now we are going to remove all of that. Remember, guys, the cream lies within the information that I'm providing, not really in solving the questions. That is why I'm saying when I was in grade 11 and 12, I would just look at this question paper without having to write anything. So I look at that 6.1 and I say, they say show that. I ask myself this question, do I have two things? Yes. What do I have? I've got the physical address, I've got the work address. Then I can be able to show that. Because I already know how to solve math problems, I don't need to write it down. I just know. Here they say calculate the average gradient of G between A and C. Here comes the question. Do you guys know the formula for calculating the gradient? Do you guys know the formula for calculating the gradient?
Y is equal to mx plus c.
Hey, y is equals to mx plus c. A very nice try, Lichumile. So this is a straight line equation, but this is the gradient. So what is the formula for the gradient? Lichumile.
It is
Y2
equals
minus
to
Y1 over X2 minus X1.
Gradient or slope is equals to change in y over change in x. The word change means 2 minus y. 2 minus y. 2 of what is change in x. That is why it's y2 minus y1. So now, for you to use this formula, you need 2 points, of which in this case they are saying the average gradient between point A. What are the coordinates of point A? It's 0 and 5. And the other point is C. So can you guys calculate the gradient from your side and tell me what the answer is? This one is easy, guys. Just make sure you calculate and you make noise so that your parents can hear that you are attending a lesson. Otherwise, imagine 1.5 hours you haven't said anything. It's more like you are there on TikTok. So even if it's wrong, just say the gradient is 1 million. They don't know what you are doing. Someone is saying 2. Is this honorable member telling us the truth?
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so that's how you easily score yourself 2 marks. A question would be, why did they say average gradient? It is because that line is curving, as you can see. So now we are having this point being point A and that point being point C. So if you draw a straight line, it's actually an average line between those 2 points. So they are saying averagely, for you to actually walk or climb that mountain from point A all the way up to point C, averagely you are sloping at a value of 2. But if it was a straight line similar to that, and they say the gradient between that point and that point, they were not going to use the word average. So that means they use the word average when it comes to parabola. So don't get confused when they say average gradient. Then you wonder if to calculate average gradient is different from just calculating the gradient. It is still the same formula, but the background or the theory behind that word average is because it is not a straight line, but they are saying averagely, the gradient is actually 2. So that's what it is meant. So now, quickly, let's move on to 6.3. This is what they are saying. Calculate the length of BD. This one of the lengths, it's a bit confusing. That is why a other honorable member might be thinking about the distance formula. Remember, the length and the distance is one and the same thing. Very, very much important, ladies and gentlemen, over there. So now, let's see. The length between, what is it, B and D. This is how you can work it out, honorable member. Do you guys agree with me that if we can know the length from the origin all the way up to that point B, and we also calculate the length from the origin all the way up to point D, then we can say this length plus that length, that is our length of BD. I'm not sure if you guys agree with me on that one, because that is the starting point at a planning level. Do you guys agree with me on that one?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so how do you then calculate the length from the origin to that point? That's why you need to know the x value at B. Because if the x value at B, let's say it's -3, and then we also try to find the x value at D, let's say it is 4. To calculate the length, Bantu Bakiti, we said you ignore that negative. So it's more like you are going to walk, let's say, 3 units and an extra 4 units, which means the length is going to be 7. So now, how do you get the x values? That's where it gets interesting, Bantu Bakit. I'm not sure if you remember when I said at B, there's something that we know at B. Do we not know that at B, y is 0, but x is what we do not know? Similarly, at D, we know that, what is it? Y is 0, but x we do not know. So this is how you calculate the x value, which is the x intercept. Hamisa, you tell me, this point B, is it on Brahma Franco or is it on Bra George?
It is on the F graph.
Which means we are going to use an equation for F, determine the X value. So let's quickly do that and see how far we can go with that. Oh, this is what is this, Bantubakit? This is the equation of F, and we know that at point B, this is 0. Y is 0. We don't know what what x is, and it's what we want. So let's see. That means we can say 1/2x² minus 8. We can just equate it to 0. Even if you said 0 is equal to the whole of that, it's still fine. So remember, you might need to get rid of that half. How can you do that? What if you multiply everything by 2? So if you multiply everything by 2, that 2 is going to cancel with that, and then you have x². What is 2 times 8? Is it not -16? I think is that. What is 0 times 2? It remains as 0. Then now you need to factorize this thing. This one, it's a perfect square. It's easy to factor. So can you guys see why it was important for you to learn how to factorize, if you remember from our initial lessons? Then at this stage, that's where you say x is equal to -4 or x is equals to 4. I'm sure you guys can now feel the reason why I'm saying at this stage, we are not at a stage where we teach you how to solve math problems. But this is at a planning stage, to plan and say, this is how we are going to tackle the issue of load shedding in the country. We assume that you know how to do the connections and everything. So at this stage, we're just planning. But you might find that there's someone who's got a question. I'm not sure. Anyone who's got a question, guys? We got x being 4, and then we got the other x being -4. So you have 2x values. Why 2x values? Because it's a parabola. You will always have 2x values. So, yes.
I got my x as plus or minus 2.
Did I maybe make a mistake? What else are honorable members getting? Because it does happen that I make a mistake, but if we all participate, that's when we'll be able to know what or which answer is correct. What are you guys getting that side?
Plus minus 4, the same one that you are getting.
Voicer also got that. Okay, let me try to work out something. Hamisa just reminded me of something. Okay, remember, there are multiple ways of working out a math problem. Let's say, Hamisa, we take it at that stage and say, what if we transpose? That means we're going to have 1/2, which is equals to positive 8. So now we need to remove that half. That means you're going to divide by half on both sides so that that cancels and that cancels. So if you say on your calculator 8 divided by 0.2, you end up having 16. So now you need to remove that. So that is why you would say you introduce a square root on both sides. Then you have x. Because it's a square root, then you say you're having plus or minus 4. So that is where we are saying x is either plus 4 or minus 4. Then it ends up being x equals to minus 4 or x equals to positive. I'm not sure. Guys, are we all on the same page on that one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that means at B, is it 4 or is it negative 4? And why?
It is negative 4 since it's on the left side. On the left side, it's like
Yes.
negative.
Yes. Lindiwe, at B, it's negative 4 because B is on the left side of the origin. And then at D, no, not at D, but this other 4, which is positive 4, it's actually that point there. So can you see this one is making a U-turn right there on the y-axis. So that means from there to there it's equals to 4, and then also from there to there it's equals to 4. But what we are looking is actually from the origin up to that point being D. Maybe let me ask, who can I ask? Minentle. This point D, is it on the graph of Bra George or Brahma Franco? Point D. Busisiwe, anyone who can tell us? And also, what does
George.
it mean? Okay, what does it mean, Molebogeng? What does it mean to us? Or what do we do? Just like we did, or just like I've explained. Do you know what it means?
Yes, it cuts on the
now that we know.
x-axis.
Yes, it cuts. So now, if we want that point, whose graph or whose formula are we going to use? Are we going to
We are
use
going to the g of x1, and that is 5. I've already calculated it.
Yes. Ukwikimus, are you sure it's 5, honorable member?
Calculated it. It's positive 5. No, it's 5, and the other side is negative 1.
This one, I don't trust the honorable members. I'm telling you. This one, we have to work it out. Let's see. This is what she's saying. But now, the question is, why did she use that one? It's because the point that she's looking for is that point D. And this point, it lies on that graph of Bra George. So that is why she's using that. Let's see, what does the formula say? Oh, that one, we have shown it, Mos. We have shown that, what is that? Even if you failed to show that one, you just take it as it is. So the graph of G is equals to negative x squared plus 4x plus, let's see, at point D, what do we know? We know that at point D something is there, which is that we don't know what the x value is. So that means we're having negative x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals to 0. So we just solve for x Bantubakit. What we do, we need to write it in the standard form. We remove that negative. You change every sign on that equation. So now you find the factors. So let's see if honorable member is correct. When you factorize, what two numbers multiplied together give you that? It's 5 and 1. The bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. Middle term is negative. So for you to multiply those two and get negative, that's if you're having a positive there. Can you see how fast you should be, honorable members? I'm even slow. I'm telling you, if I was in exam, by now, I would be sitting at home watching Skim Sam. Let's see. Now that, but that, or that, but that, you know, take it to the other side, it becomes positive 5. So I think honorable, hey, Moleboge, I withdraw, honorable member. I withdraw on a point of order to myself. So let's see. But now D, because we are having two values of x, we are having -1 and we are also having what? 5. Which point is which? Can you clarify, honorable member?
5. E is 5. It's positive 5. And this one that is not written, it's -1. 0 to -1.
Yes. So that means at D, the x value is positive 5 because it's on this positive. So that means that point it is the one which is -1.
Yes.
And even though we won't need it, just like this one, we just know it is 4. So that means from the origin to there, what length is that?
It's 9.
Hey.
Because isn't it from we count from origin to D is 5. We count from origin to B is 4. We forget about the negative. So it's 9.
Yes. So that means from here to here is 4, and then from here to here is 5. Then the total distance is 9. So what you do, you just say, what is it? BD is equals to 9. Something that you need to remember, guys, in mathematics, when letters are written together like that in capital letters, that is the length. For example, if you write it as CD, then we know that it's actually the length CD. So that means the length from B to D is equals to 9. I'm not sure if it's only me and Moleboge who understands what is going on over there, Bantubakiti. Anyone who's got a question?
So is this lesson going to be posted because my network is having a bit of, my phone is having a bit of
Yes. So remember, guys, every time when you hear me in the beginning of the lesson saying, ladies and gentlemen, please do allow me to say, just know that it's an indication that a lesson is going to be recorded, and that's me trying to make sure that everyone joins, and most importantly, just to test if there's no problem with the network, and also just to check if it is not blurry. So the lesson is being recorded. As always, it will be posted where you guys write your tests. And before I forget, Bantubagiti, all the grade 10s, 11 and 12 tomorrow at around 8:30, we are going to have a guest where we discuss challenges that you guys as learners face at school, whatever. There's another honorable member who raised some important points, of which they will also be discussed in that what is it, the discussion that we'll be having. So it's more like we're going to have, you can say, a motivational speaker or something of that nature, where we discuss things like how to manage time, peer pressure, how to choose careers. Honorable member said, how do you deal with parents recommending you a certain career and you don't want that? How do you whatever? So those are the issues that we'll be focusing on. That is why on that message I said, in case if you've got something that you'd like for us to discuss, just send it via inbox so that I'll add it on the list and I will pose those questions to our guest. If we'll still be having some time, I'm going to let you guys also ask some follow-up questions based on what we'll be receiving. So we normally do this just to keep you motivated, and most importantly, just to expose you to what ordinary learners might be going through. You might think that some things are only happening to you, but only to find that you've got common factors. So some deal with some things differently, and when we discuss those, that's when you are able to know that, okay, this is not happening to me, and this is how you can possibly deal with whatever a challenge you might be facing. And also that includes possibly how to apply at institutions, and also when is the right time to apply. All those kind of things will be discussed tomorrow, so just make sure that you don't miss that, just in case it won't be recorded. Okay, so those last two questions, Bantubakiti, this is why I say there's always a starting point. I won't explain those to you even though they are easy based on the marks allocated. It is because that is not the starting point. I will need to start at the starting point and explain what are those, what they mean, so that I know you'll be able to take any question in relation to that. It's in most cases where maybe I'll just write on this. It's in most cases where you'll be dealing with inequalities under functions. Let's say, for example, they might be saying it is that 6.4.1. They're saying use the graphs to solve for x if f of x is greater or equals to 0. Have a look at this, Moleboga. Have a look at this. They're saying where f of x is greater or equals to 0. You can give an answer by just looking at the graph, or you can give an answer by somehow trying to work it out. What if it was given to you as this? What is f of x? F of x is half x squared. What was that? Was it minus 8? Yes, minus 8, and then they say greater or equals to 0. You remember, we said this is an inequality because of that sign. Because of that power of 2, it's a quadratic. Then it makes it a quadratic inequality. If you work out this thing until the end, where you find critical values represented on a number line, you end up possibly having let's say something being x, maybe less than or is equals to whatever. On the other side, maybe greater than or it's equals to whatever. This is exactly what they want you to provide when they say where f of x is greater than 0. But someone, not just greater than 0, but greater or equals to 0. But someone who spends much of their time into trying to work out some math problems, they might be able to notice that starting from this point, going in that direction, that's where the y values are greater than 0. Greater than 0 means above 0. And then if it's greater than or is equals to, they are saying starting from a 0. So at that point, from there going up, that's where the y values of f are greater than 0 because they are positive. It's more like from this point going up, the y values are positive. That's where they are greater than 0. It's not only on this side. Do you agree that even on this side, from there going up, that's where the y values are greater than 0? That is why I'm saying one might not go that route of solving this, but he just looks at that and say where x is less or equals to -4. So that means they are saying all the x values in that direction, that's where this is increasing because it's above 0. On this side, how do you represent that on an inequality? You'll say that's where the x values are greater or equals to, 4. So it's more like starting from there, going towards the right. That's where all the y values of that function are increasing. That's how you score yourself 2 marks. Not easy to notice, not easy to figure it out, but it's doable. And it is at this stage where I'm not really expecting you guys to have mastered that. That is why I'm saying I'll need to start at the starting point. So for you not to drain yourself, in case if you come across something difficult, don't stress that much about it. If you don't know it, you don't know it. You just keep it. And then you focus on those that you know. At a later stage, that's when everything is going to make some sense. Trust me on that one. Guys, I'm about to wrap up our lesson for today, and I forgot to welcome our very new lesson. New learners who are attending my lesson for the very first time today. You might have been told that my lessons take about 1 hour, but they can go up to 2 hours. And the reason to that is because you guys don't have time. You've got no time. You don't spend 2 hours during examinations. During examinations, that's when you have a talk with yourself and a question paper. In 30 minutes, you should be done preparing for your examination. You spend much of your time during these times so that you don't feel under pressure during exams. But also, in case if you can only be able to award yourself an hour to attend only for an hour, and then after an hour, you can leave the lesson. But before you do that, make sure that it was confirmed that the lesson is recording so that you can be able to catch it up. So obviously, you've got some homeworks. Some of you want to watch the Queen, but there's no time for the Queen. So attend till the end. If you can't, make sure that you catch up so that on the next lesson, you will be following. So guys, that was all from my side for today. I hope you guys did enjoy as much as I did. And most importantly, it wasn't really about the calculations. It's all about the understanding behind what the question wants you to do. Because whatever that you learn at school, they are teaching you all that I've taught you in 1 hour. So I'm assuming that any information that you'll be getting, it's an additional information. But I'm telling you, studying, making use of the question papers and the memos, you will never go wrong. It works. It has worked for me. It has worked for some. So anyone who's got a question before I sign out? Kucho Tojani.
I have a
You've
question.
never... Yes, question coming through.
Yes, but it's based on functions, but not on what you are doing now. I wanted to know if they're saying they're giving you a 2 mark, and that's the allocation of the mark, and when you are doing that question, it's very long for a 2 mark. What do you do? because I was dealing with questions of functions. And there's the other one of 2 mark, just finding the turning point, and it was long. So
Was it long on the memo, or when you worked it out, it was long?
no, when I worked it out, it was long.
Hey. Molebogeng, you now understand why I say I don't trust you, nay?
Because I think maybe it's that I want to follow what I'm doing. So maybe that's on the memo. But on the memo, the answers are correct. The only thing is that how I've done it, it's long.
Was long. Okay.
Yes.
So let's say, okay, let me not remove all of that. Let's say, that means there are multiple ways to approach that particular question. And with you going through the longer route, that's how you gauge the level of your understanding. Because there, I'm pretty much sure that you checked the memo after your long steps. So it serves as an indication to you that if you have done you've done it correctly, but you took a long try and you still got the same answers, ask yourself this question: whatever that you were doing, were you applying your mind? Did you do what you did because of the information that were you applying your understanding, or was it a guesswork? Let me maybe put it this way: were you applying your understanding, or was it guesswork, and you ended up getting the correct answers?
No, it was my understanding. I went step by step. I think the answer sheet that I'm having, they just write answers there. So with me, I wanted to follow. I was going step by step.
Then
I was applying my understanding.
It is a good indication that you've got enough information that you can apply in order to answer these questions. Because normally in the memo, they skip some steps in between. For example, where you transpose, where you do whatever, they skip those. And in some instances, you might find that there's a formula for calculating the turning points. And then from there, you might find that you did not know about the formula, but you went the long route. Let me quickly tell you guys something. If you have, for example, that a parabola, because it's making a U-turn along the y-axis, that means this distance from the origin to the x is exactly the same as that one there. So that means if here is 2, also here is a 2. Then let me quickly explain something to say, if you are having that, if you know that here it is -1, and then here, let's say maybe it is 3, and somehow or for some reason they want you to determine the turning points, something that you might not know, Moleboge, is that you can say this point plus that value you divide it by 2, it's going to give you that x value. So what I'm saying is the x at that TP is equals to that x1, you plus it with x2, you divide it by 2. So it's more like you have -1, let's say, plus 3 divided by 2. What are you getting there? You get, it's going to be, 1. So that means already you know that at your turning points, you already have your x being 1. Then you just take that, you substitute it into the formula of G or F or whatever. Then that's how you get that other value. So I just wanted to indicate that you can still work out these values without having to go that route and still find the same answer. And you might take a long dry, or it could be a short dry. So it all depends on how much of information you have and how do you use it based on the given information. I'm not sure, Moleboge, if you have an idea of what I'm trying to explain regarding
No, I get
different
it.
ways
As
of
we are
getting the
explaining,
same
I'm
answer
getting them without even
without this.
calculating them. Yes, without this, without even
Yes.
looking at this, because I calculate. Because I asked you, I said, should I calculate everything? You said yes, so I was calculating.
Because
So, but now I see
if
turning point. There's no need if they're asking for a turning point and they've given it to me. There's no need for me to calculate it. And when it's 2 marks, isn't it?
yes, but
Okay.
remember, it also depends on what the question is. If, for example, they're saying show that the turning points are this and that, you need to work it out. You need to work it out. If they're saying show that, it's more like proof. But the sense that I'm getting is that what you did, it's not like it's wrong. It's 100% sure, and that's what you use in order to gauge your understanding. You work it your own way, you get it right. That's when you notice that, okay, I've used my understanding and I still got it right. Then you check on the memo, they've done it differently. Then you check, okay, here's another thing, Bantu Bakiti. Davina, don't say because you have worked it out differently and you got the same answer as the memo, and then you say, okay, it's fine, I'll just use my method. Try to also understand what they did in the memo. It helps because questions come differently. You'll always remember that it can be worked out this way. Alternatively, it can be worked out this way. Just in case if you try your method and it doesn't work, because you understood another possible way of working it out, you might find that based on the question asked, it is that method that you need to apply in order to answer that. So that's a way of learning. For example, Matapelo, geography. It's not really a complicated or difficult subject, but if you are exposed to a lot of possible answers, it becomes easier for you to understand. You might find that there's a question which is allocated 2 marks, but it has about 4 possible reasons which could be an answer to that question. So don't say because your teacher said this is the answer to that question, then you just focus on that. With these other answers, they also develop your understanding based on the question itself. So that is why I'm saying it's important to learn everything. Don't just say, I know this one, then you stick to that. Study the yelling. I'm pretty much sure that Moleboge is satisfied at that side. Manje mfuna ukubaleka. I'm not sure who's going to let me baleka ngenyawo zobili. Mzozo, let me see if Mzozo is there. Mzozo, ngithembele kuwe Mzozo. Uzothi ngiyenzeni manje? Mase simo sinje.
Sir,
Nimzwile bantu bakithi. Last question, or am I signing out? Guys. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Desmond, and I'm out.